Imagine waking up on a quiet morning only to find the world on edge, just a single step away from a global conflict unlike anything seen before. News outlets flash breaking headlines about missile tests, surprise military drills, and countries forming secretive defense pacts. Yet, what we often see in the media is only the visible surface. Behind those reports lies a deeper, more complex story, one filled with silent strategies, calculated risks, and shifting allegiances that rarely reach the public eye. The possibility of a third world war is not just a distant idea in history books. It is a fear that experts argue is becoming increasingly relevant. That's exactly why today's discussion matters. In this video, we're not just repeating what mainstream outlets have already told you. Instead, we're peeling back the curtain to reveal what isn't being said out loud, how global leaders maneuver in the shadows, why superpower rivalries are intensifying, and what those subtle changes mean for the world we live in. Many analysts warn that the path we're on is far more dangerous than most people realize, and once you understand the context, it will completely reshape the way you view international events. Over the past decade, a steady rise in global friction has been impossible to ignore. Superpowers such as the United States, China, and Russia are no longer just competing for economic dominance. They are openly pushing military boundaries, testing each other's patience, and showing the world that they are prepared to defend their interests at almost any cost. Each move, whether it's a naval fleet deployed in contested waters or a military drill near a rival's border, adds to a growing climate of mistrust. Recent military buildups provide a perfect example. The South China Sea has become one of the most contested regions on the planet, with Chinese vessels and American naval fleets staring each other down. At the same time, NATO has been reinforcing its presence across Eastern Europe in response to Russian military exercises and ongoing tensions. On top of that, the testing of hypersonic missiles by several countries has raised alarms, as these weapons can reach their targets in minutes. None of these actions are random. Each is part of a bigger game of chess being played on a global scale. But here's the critical detail. Modern warfare doesn't always begin with a dramatic declaration or the first shot fired across a battlefield. Instead, it often starts quietly, in the shadows, through cyber attacks, economic sanctions, and sophisticated information campaigns designed to weaken opponents before a single soldier steps forward. These subtle strategies are often invisible to the public, but they are no less dangerous. In fact, they may be even more effective at destabilizing nations, spreading confusion, and pushing the world closer to conflict without most people realizing how close the tipping point really is. The mainstream news often frames conflicts as sudden flare-ups, as if nations wake up one day and simply decide to escalate. But in reality, the truth is far more calculated. Behind the closed doors of international summits and private meetings, leaders negotiate military agreements, economic partnerships, and intelligence-sharing pacts that quietly reshape the global order. What appears to be a surprise headline is usually the result of years of preparation. The average citizen rarely hears about these backdoor strategies, but they play a crucial role in determining whether the future is peaceful cooperation or dangerous confrontation. Smaller nations, caught between rival powers, are often forced into difficult choices. In Eastern Europe, countries feel the weight of Russian influence on one side and NATO's presence on the other. In the South Pacific, island nations face pressure as China expands its reach while the United States tries to maintain its influence. These countries may not want to take sides, but the realities of geography and survival leave them little room for neutrality. This forced alignment creates instability, making accidental escalations and misunderstandings more likely to spiral out of control. And yet, the media rarely connects these dots. Coverage is often fragmented, focusing on individual incidents without showing how each piece fits into a much larger puzzle. A military drill here, a sanction there, a diplomatic walkout in another region. On their own, these events seem isolated. But when combined, they paint a picture of an international system that is rapidly polarizing. Behind the scenes, secretive alliances and covert strategies are laying the groundwork for a world that looks drastically different from the one we know today. One of the most significant changes is the gradual decline of Western dominance. For decades, the United States and its allies held unrivaled power, shaping global trade, finance, and diplomacy. But now, that balance is shifting. China's Belt and Road Initiative is expanding across Asia, Africa, and Europe, building infrastructure that ties dozens of countries into its economic orbit. At the same time, Russia has strengthened its ties with nations in Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia, creating partnerships that challenge the influence of traditional Western powers. These alliances are not just symbolic handshakes. They represent a direct challenge to the existing world order that has shaped international politics since the end of World War II. Every railway built by China, every energy deal signed by Russia, every military cooperation pact forged outside of Western institutions is part of a slow but undeniable shift in global power. And history shows us that when the balance of power changes this dramatically, conflict often follows. The world has entered a period of transition, and transitions are almost always turbulent. If we look back at history, both World War I and World War II didn't erupt out of thin air. They were the outcome of years of unresolved tensions, hidden rivalries, and a series of small crises that slowly escalated. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 was just a spark that ignited a fire already fueled by alliances, territorial disputes, and arms races. Similarly, in the 1930s, economic depression, rising nationalism, and the unchecked ambitions of aggressive leaders set the stage for another global catastrophe. The lesson is clear. World wars are rarely accidents. They are built brick by brick over time. Many experts warn that the current global situation feels eerily familiar. Nations are once again flexing their military power, forming rival alliances, and testing how far their opponents will go. Each side assumes that the other will not risk full-scale war, believing that deterrence will hold. But history also shows us the danger of miscalculation. Leaders often think they can control the escalation, only to find themselves trapped in a conflict larger than they ever intended. The fear today is that the same mistakes are being repeated on an even more dangerous scale. The role of technology makes the modern era far more unpredictable than the past. Hypersonic missiles, capable of traveling at extraordinary speeds, can reach their targets in a matter of minutes, leaving almost no time for defense or negotiation. Drones now dominate battlefields, able to strike with precision while minimizing the risk to human soldiers. Artificial intelligence is being tested for decision-making in military strategy, raising ethical concerns about machines potentially influencing life-and-death scenarios. This technological arms race makes the margin for error dangerously small. Beyond conventional weapons, cyber warfare has emerged as a silent but devastating new battlefield. A single cyber attack can cripple entire nations, disabling power grids, shutting down financial systems, or even disrupting emergency services. Unlike traditional warfare, these attacks leave no smoking guns, making it nearly impossible to identify the true perpetrator. This creates an environment where mistrust grows rapidly, and retaliation can escalate conflicts before the facts are fully understood. The battlefield of the future may not begin with tanks and troops, but with keystrokes and invisible code. And looming over everything is the haunting reality of nuclear weapons. More than 12,000 nuclear warheads exist today, spread across multiple countries, each one powerful enough to level entire cities. While deterrence has so far prevented their use in conflict since 1945, the very existence of these weapons means the stakes are unimaginably high. One miscalculation, one failed communication, or one leader pushed too far could unleash destruction on a scale humanity has never seen. It is this ever-present shadow that makes discussions of global power shifts so urgent, because the consequences of failure are not regional, they are global. This raises an uncomfortable question. Are world leaders truly in control of the forces they have unleashed? On the surface, presidents and prime ministers appear to make confident choices, projecting strength to their citizens and allies. Yet behind the curtain, even they may be trapped in a cycle of escalation, where one move demands a counter-move, and backing down looks like weakness. In such a system, momentum can become more powerful than intention, dragging nations toward outcomes that no one originally wanted. Still, there are reasons for cautious optimism. Diplomatic channels remain open, and backdoor negotiations between rivals are quietly ongoing. International organizations, peace forums, and multilateral treaties attempt to provide platforms where disagreements can be managed before they spiral out of control. History offers examples of moments when the world stepped back from the brink, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 being one of the clearest reminders. These instances prove that dialogue, even in the tensest times, can prevent catastrophe. However, diplomacy is fragile, especially under pressure. It doesn't take much for talks to collapse. A single provocative statement, a failed negotiation, or a violent clash in a disputed region can undo months or even years of progress. And while leaders may wish to keep control, global events don't always bend to their will. The danger often lies not in carefully planned wars, but in accidents, misunderstandings, or chain reactions that spiral beyond anyone's control. So, is World War III truly unstoppable? The honest answer is no, it is not inevitable. The choices made today still matter. De-escalation, mutual understanding, and cooperation can change the trajectory of history. But the reality is that the risk grows larger with every act of aggression, every breakdown in communication, and every alliance that hardens into confrontation. The path we are on is dangerous, but it is not set in stone. Humanity has the power to step away from the edge, but it requires courage and wisdom from leaders and awareness from the public. And that is why staying informed is so critical. The headlines you see may not tell the full story, but understanding the bigger picture gives you the power to see through the noise. Global power is shifting, tensions are rising, and the stakes could not be higher. Whether or not World War III happens will depend not only on the decisions of governments but also on the awareness of people like you, citizens who demand accountability, truth, and peace. Because ultimately, the future of humanity is not written yet, and every voice matters in shaping what comes next.